Hi guys, welcome to the Rivertrail Foods Mountain Man kind of tips and tricks video about staging our product and displaying product and putting stuff out. We just want to give you some things we've seen and little tips we've picked up over the years of stocking shelves and moving stuff around that I think will give you some clear advantages in just making your displays look great all the time. Some of the stuff is really simple. But if you can do it, it will make a difference between whether your stacks of product on your displays look really sharp or if they're falling all over the place and shelves look pretty messy. It doesn't take a lot of time, but if you can be conscious of it and work with it, that would be great. The first items that we're looking at here are sunflower seeds, and we got two different bags of roasted sunflower seeds here, and they look pretty much the same, but we're going to show you that these two bags are actually very, very different, and then I'll explain why so that you can understand why we use some of these techniques in stacking. As you can see, these two bags of sunflower seeds, the one on the left is a much flatter bag, and the one on the right is obviously got some air in it and is a little bit more puffy bag. And we're not really sure exactly what happens, but we have a feeling because we pack it basically a mile high with all of our products. We're shipping down. Any bags that have got some weight on them seem to compact and compress quite a bit more to be fairly flat. So in our cases, the very top bags, kind of the first bags on the top, generally our cases, you've got 3 stacks of 4 items inside of each case. The top bag in each stack generally is going to be puffy, like this guy, which nothing wrong with it. That's the way it is. But if you're stocking like most people do, you're going to grab the first item out of the box and it's going to go on the bottom. Well, when you start with this thing on the bottom and you start stacking on top of it, all of a sudden you've got something that moves around a ton and tends to fall over and move. You know, you get 2 or 3 items stacked on top of it, you got a problem. If you start with the flat bags on the bottom, all of a sudden you don't have anywhere near the movement that you had before. And if you can work with, you know, several flat bags, all of a sudden stacking this becomes really easy. You know, but if we start with this bag on the bottom, you know, this thing is moving all over the place and you're going to have product that's flying all over and not looking good on your rack. So first tip is pull from the bottom of the boxes. So when you get a case, either flip it upside down, open it up, and load the product from the bottom down, or open the case, reach to the bottom, grab the bottom packages first, put them on the display first, and then put the top bags on there last. Your stacks are going to be a lot nicer, a lot neater. They're going to stay nicer for a long time, a lot longer than if you're starting with the puffy bag on the bottom. Now this stack really demonstrates what we're talking about. This stack over here, you've got flat bags that we pulled from the bottom. We use these to make the base. These guys over here, we grab the first bags off the top, and you got a stack that isn't going to last, you know, more than a half a day before it's going sideways and backward from customers, you know, picking up a bag and looking at it. If you can take a couple minutes to do that, it'll make night and day difference between what your display is going to look like. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's just pulling from the bottom of the case when you're putting stuff out. The other thing is most of our product, if you can take a couple minutes and if you can just kind of flatten, and it's really just a revolving motion like this to flatten it, that makes a huge difference. Because if you're putting product out like this, where everything's at one side, and this is how some of the product might be in the case, again, if this is your bottom unit, your whole stack is going to be going sideways. Whereas if you take in just another minute or two to really flatten this thing, then it makes a world of difference in terms of how your bags are going to stack on your shelf. The other thing you're going to find as you work with our program is a lot of times the food, as it's packaged, a lot of times it's packaged vertically like this, so product tends to settle into one side of the bag or the other. Which, if you're going to put this out, you're going to end up with, you know, some crazy stacks that, you know, are going sideways, you know, real fast because all the food is at one end of the bag. But if you can take a second and just shake the bags out and make them more even with distribution of product, and then try and find the flattest ones that you start to stack with, you've got a very, very different effect on the shelf. It doesn't take a lot of time. All it takes is a few minutes, but it's a few minutes that'll make the difference between whether or not you're straightening the rack every 10, 15 minutes or whether you're straightening it every day or two. Because that's just the difference that this can make if you guys can take the time to give it just a little bit of attention. Just one more time, just give me another example. Neon Squiggles is one of our popular items in the line, and again, because of the way it's packaged and the fact it's a gummy, you have a lot of stuff that that comes down here, and it almost is like a ball of product, and you're looking at that going, well, how am I supposed to stack anything here, because this isn't going to do a thing. But again, if you can hang on to one end of the bag, shake the product out, just take a couple minutes to really pay attention. And again, like we said, grab from the bottom where the stuff is going to be the most vacuum packed, and start with that. You've got a stack that's going to last a lot longer on your display than if you're just pulling stuff right out of the box and throwing it out there. We know time is something that every produce department is fighting. We know that lack of the right amount of help, or just help in general, is something you're fighting, especially with the cut fruit programs you've got and everything else. We get that, and we're not trying to add more to your plate, but if you can take just a couple minutes in the long run, that's going to make a world of difference on what your display looks like over the long course of everything, as well as affect how well the product's going to sell. When the display is stocked full and it looks sharp, product sells. People are attracted to it. There's a wow factor with what we're doing, and people come in and they wander around to see what you got. If everything's helter-skelter and going crazy, it's not too surprising that the sales suffer. So, think about some of the things we got in here. If you guys can institute these as you're working your displays, that'd be great. Another tip that really helps with product lying flat can be interlacing items that are sitting next to each other on the shelf. For example, if I start with one bag here, and I then have another bag that we lay the the tag of it just over a little bit, and then the next bag kind of stacks like this to where you interlace the product. And if you can do these across your end racks or even in your full racks, your ability of these stacks to last is a whole lot better than if the product is just two different stacks that are side by side. It helps the product hold in together, and it'll help you guys not have to straighten or mess with the displays as often, if you can do some of that.